Zeh kolas in the Basi L'Gani Sikala. The pasuk says, "I've come to my garden to my sister the bride." And that there's it's L'Gani, L'Gnuni. Again, the Medrash is taking it out of its literal meaning of a garden, because it doesn't say the garden, but the Medrash, the pasuk is saying an intimate place. Gani. So the implication is Gnuni, bridal chamber, the Makom Shayikir B'Tchila, the place where the Ikar Shechina was at the outset. The Ikar Shechina B'Tachtein Moisa, what was here. Lachra Golus V'Agula, after this Golus and the Gula, Yiyeh Leirak Olam HaMiloya Nivra, not only will the world be whole and complete, as it was as it was before the sin, as the Medrash points out, that the word tel this is spelled full. The vav that it'll be even greater than it was kedem machet. Interestingly, the Rebbe in the first Maamer says at the end, makes this point in the very first Maamer, and says specifically, higher Mashiach will be higher than Adam Rishon before the Chet. And the footnote there, the original footnote that seems the Rebbe added initially when this Maamer was first published formally for Yud Alef Nisan that year. The Rebbe adds a whole discussion there in the footnote. It seems to contradict one place in Eitz Chaim. It says explicitly in the Kisvei Arizal, rather, the Mashiach will be greater than Adam Rishon after the Chet. But then he says, see a place in another place, quoted in the Torah, which also quotes from the Kisvei Arizal, from the Torah of the Arizal, I think. That you find that there it says it's going to be very cryptic. It says, see there for possible resolution that there'll be neshamas chadoshes that will be drawn down. Mashiach comes higher than Adam Rishon before the Chet. Yechidah mamish. So, like 2 stages perhaps in Mashiach, but the second stage is even higher than Adam Rishon before the Chet. Even though all neshamas come from him, all the neshamas were Torah were literally hanging. Part of Adam Rishon's great neshama. Mashiach's neshama is even deeper still to the essence. Meantime, it's understood that it has to be more than it was at the outset, because to go back to where things were, so that wouldn't justify there being mevazbez, all the oitzeres. All the treasures that he amassed, and which were amassed, he mentions this a few times from his forebearers, generation after generation. So they're given through the officers to the Anshe Achoil, to the soldiers. So he says, so if they went through, this happened, that a simple foot soldier is getting the oitzeres of generations, it's not to go back. So it's a radical change. An aliyah that's even higher than Adam Rishon Lifnei Achet. That seems to be the implication here. This whole Inyan that we're talking about now is connected particularly to the Balei Lula, Nasi Adur, about whom Moshe Rabbeinu says about himself, and Pashas Veschanan, I stand between you and God, as the Rebbe explains elsewhere, not a memutza, a mafsik, not an intermediary that gets in between, but the opposite, an intermediary which brings together and makes one. Memutza machaber, that's what a Rebbe is. Shorosh v'klol is called Pekidei Achoyel, that he, referring to the Fitik Rebbe, was the commander-in-chief, the head of all of the officers. He's the first to open. He was the first one of all the generals over the years, he's saying, to open up the precious treasures and bring them all the way down to the soldier on the front, He gives them the strength, power and the strength and knowledge and Muhammad to conduct the war. And to stand perfect Mesiris Nefesh ad lahamid b'sakana chayin nafshay, to the extent that he endangers his life. Hainu, meaning shagam b'achish shekvat bizbu kol ha'itzeres, even after the itzeres have been all given, squandered, poured out, ve'in ze maspik adayin, that's still not enough. As in Maamer b'sakana gam chayin nafshay, then the next is even his own life. Ad chayin nafshay likis, even giving up his godly soul's life, Pelim anitzochem, for another year to bring a shchina lamata, and we pale the effect, the victory. She's battle menaged afilu bedava kal beyoser, that the enemy opposition is nullified, even the most subtle opposition. So through this Maamer the Matzav of Hashem spread us throughout the nations, which is the Bidur Anitzutzis that leads to the Maamer the Matzav Shel Segula Mikol Amim, that you are my treasure from all the nations of the world. Commissioner Kosek David said, from Matan Torah of Yisrael, the Segula, you shall be from me a Segula, treasured people Mikol Amim. It means the treasures invested them are, make them treasures, as it were. Mavur B'Maamer Achel explained elsewhere. Shadi Avodim Amim, the connection to the Amim Dafke. Because it's only through the Avodah with the Amim. Shazayim V'Achaltas Kalam, you'll consume them. Consuming means She'oichlim Es HaNitzutzis Kedusha She'B'neihem. We elevate, we consume the Nitzutzis Kedusha that is amongst them, thereby transforming them as Azim Yizgal Inyan Abchira B'Yisrael. So then, that's the meaning of Yisam B'Sgula Mikol Amim. Simple meaning is you will be a treasure to me from all the other nations of the world. Simple meaning is not them, you. The deeper meaning he's saying is Mikola Amim, from your avodah with the nations of the world, elevating them. That's what reveals your skula, your treasure, your precious property for which we gave you the treasures, the itras, the skulas. So this brings then Mizgal in Abchira B'Yisrael. It's dafka through the avodah with the world that the choice in Eden is revealed. Ata v'chatonu, again here, Mikola Amim. So it's not a rejection of Mikola Amim, Adarabah. It's actually a validation of Mikola Amim. That Mikola Amim are all part of the Ata v'chatonu, and that's their shleimus. And that's the avodah of a year to engage and elevate and transform. Or in simple language, the chosen people does not mean chosen and God rejected everybody else, which is everybody's assumption. Everybody, which people assume, which is why they're embarrassed with the notion and will renounce it. It's the opposite. We are chosen to be responsible for everybody else, as it were. Which we are, and Jews naturally feel that. Guilty for everything. And that leads to the other taich, not the dispersed us, that after the dispersal amongst the nations, first taich, then the more simple taich, in process taich of Yerushalayim, that Yidden will sit in open, Yerushalayim will be an open city. I, says God, will be a wall of fire around. Save of Kalalman. No longer need for physical wall. And all of this will be very soon through the fulfillment of the pasuk from to Mashiach. The one, the Peretz, the descendant of Peretz, will ascend before them and lead them out of Golus. Peretz means he bursts. The Koyal Mashiach, this refers to your Mashiach, so we're going to experience not only the heels of Mashiach, Motu Raglin Beraglin. One foot reaches the other from the Zohar, Mashiach's footsteps behind ours behind his. Behold, my servant will be very wise. Yorum and exalted, Venosa, and elevated a government and very lofty. Here he says here, Ma'oid Daike. Exceedingly, Oisius Adam, which is a reference to Adam, Elisha, but Sidaf to Ma'id, but to rearrange Ma'id, implying even higher, exceeding higher even the madrega of Adam lifnei achet. That seems to be the implication here, as he said in the first Maamer. Then he will kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. The Rashi explains to me the revelation of the secrets of Torah will be revealed there when Mashiach comes. There'll be this deep intimacy with Hashem. They saw that Mashiach will teach Torah to every year, to Mashiach, this the deepest Torah, Mashiach's revelation, Yechid of Torah. They avoid the b'meshach zman hagolos, simshach kol zeh, b'goloi, and through the avodah in Golos, it's all drawn down in a revealed way. L'matam asar tvachim, lower than 10 handbreadths. That means because in Hilchos Shabbos, higher than 10 handbreadths, even in a public domain, is no longer a Reshus HaYachid, it's a Makom P'tur. So but anything below 10 handbreadths belongs to the Reshus HaRabim in the laws of carrying, etc. On Shabbos, that's what it always stresses, there should come down the Matam Asar Tvachim, below 10 handbreadths, engage and transform the Reshus HaRabim, the domain of the many, to the Reshus HaYachid, the domain of the singular, when the world will be all completely Shabbos, Bagola Dedan in our time, the Beers Mashiach came. Okay, so I'm going to just read their content that the editors wrote. It's an overview, and then we'll continue with the next Maamer. So on the table of contents, they summarize the Maamer. They just tell us what the Maamer talks about in the following, and I'll translate it. What is a name? A name connects the created being with the highest that's drawn into it from above. So to the 7 names that are not erased, it's the fusion of Ani, the divine life force, with Maisai, the action down here. Deeper still, that's a Tzemach explains, in explaining the Baal Shem Tov, the meaning of the names, that the names is not merely the Oir, Poshet, that's in the Keli, but it means the Oir, but the Oir contained in the Keli, but the Oir of the Keli. That Iyu, he unites with the God Moihi, with his Kalim, is a deeper Iyu and vesture than Iyu im Chayohi, with his light, with his revelation, as we explained. And then the Rebbe added, this explains what the Maggid says, that through Ispashtos HaGashmius, the vesture of Gashmius, and the preponderance or the dominance of Koich HaRuchni, the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur, then it can be Gilu Shem Havaya Kiksava. The Rebbe asked, what's gained? Ruchnis is also a Metzias. It's also an existence. It explains that the point here is we have the fusion of 2 things. Because divesting oneself of the Kohen, divesting himself of Gashmi, which is why he can reach Shem Havaya, the way it's written. The Kohen Gadol divesting himself of Gashmi is he's still married and he's still tethered to the world in an intimate way, but at the same time, he's divested from it. And that is Nimna Nimna, is to be within and transcend simultaneously. This draws on the withheld from the withheld, the hidden from the hidden, and therefore can be the Gila of Shema Havai, which he says is Shema Etzem, not just Shema Mefurish, but Shema Etzem, which is the lashon we find first. It points out interestingly in the Bes Yosef, on Shulchan Aruch, the Kohen Gadol will read it, summon it forth as it's written, because he's embodying this fusion of both, of Gvul and Bli Gvul, that draws on the Etzem, and that leads then to the Taich of the Alter Rebbe, and explaining both the Pardes and the Baal Shem Tov, i.e., the unity of Iyu with Chayohi. Revelation is also not Atzmos, and the unity of Iyu with Gamoyo Kalim, relative to Atzmos, it's all the same. Bli Gvul and Gvul, it's all possible because of Atzmos, who is beyond Bli Gvul and Gvul and manifests and chooses to manifest in both of them equally and simultaneously. Clear? That's the Alter Rebbe's vote. Someone's knocking. It's supposed to be open. Oh, they're in. So the Rebbe said the Alter Rebbe's Pirush is not arguing with the Baal Shem Tov and not arguing with the Pardes. The Bemis is the Pirush Pnimi, the inner, in the insight, really that explains how there is Iyuv v'Chayayu and Iyuv v'Gadmayi. And moreover, it's all one, Gvul and Bligvul, Oyer and Keli, because of Nina Nimnois, Atzmos, the Eibishter beyond. So the Machama, this is all to explain Shemus, which is all Achona to explain Shem Tzvakas. So now, applying it to what we are talking about now, the final great struggle. So the Milchama for the war for Nitzochen. What's Nitzochen? Nitzochen means it has to be this way, and everything has to be this way. So that's only shined by the Melech, because only the Melech embodies living in touch with his essence of his neshama, which is why he's Melech. Which is why it's bound up with everybody else, because it's only the essence level that we are all bound up with each other. And that's why he lives this collective identity of the people. And so therefore, since he embodies Hanosi Hakol, in other words, as Rashi brings from the Medrash and Chumash, Parshas Chukas, Hanosi, the leader, is everyone. So therefore, by him is the true of the Tzochen, because the Tzochen is Mushish in the Etzem HaNefesh, that says this way and no other, not negotiable. Only the Etzem HaNefesh is not negotiable. Seichel is negotiable, Midas is negotiable, everything is. It's a price to pay where it ends, where the quest ends. But with Etzem HaNefesh is involved, there is no end. And only the Melech is in touch with his Etzem HaNefesh, only the Melech truly has the inyan of Nitzach. And as the more plugged in we are into the Melech, the more we experience the essence of our own neshama, and therefore the victory, total victory. So what's the kavanah of the milchama? That all should be as his will. So there's no, as he says, no place for cheshbonos, and therefore there's the bizbus ha'itzeres, and likewise l'mayla, the Eibishter. We are called tzivos Hashem. The Eibishter is called Shem Tzvokos, in the context of the final battle, which is now. But how does the Avodah begin? There are stages to the Avodah. Tzivos Hashem is Atzilus, Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the goal. But in order to achieve that is the Avodah, as it was B'mei HaNevi'im, and we're even post-Nevi'im, which is Havaya Tzvokos. Havaya Tzvokos, that's Iskafia. Havaya is what's I'm looking for? Not submerged, subsumed. In Tzvokos, in Bria, in creation, in hosts, in multiplicity. There's a Yetzer Hara, there's a real world, and it's a real battle for us. So the Havaya, the Eibishter comes and helps us, but the world we're living is the world of Tzvokos, that's a right of Iskafia. Then we have to get to his Hapcha, where it's Sivis Havaya, where Tzvokos is the opposite, submused, subsumed. Some words I'll never get. Subsumed. Yeah? So right now, in Havaya, and then there's the Memutza, the intermediate stage, which was Shem Tzvokos, which we said was even in the Avodah of Iskafia, there's elements of Ishapcha, even the Avodah of Bittul Hayesh, there's the understanding of Bittul B'Metzias, which we suggested means that in some areas of the Avodah, the battle is over. It's not the perennial battle with everything. Some areas that the person already becomes, it's embarrassing, and he's beyond it, and he doesn't struggle with those same things. The struggle is upgraded. But in that area, as in of a relative Bittul B'Metzias, it no longer represents a threat, no longer enticing, no longer of interest. And my father would say, Nish Neigerik, not interested. My father, it's not his expression, it's a Yiddish expression. You may be, I'm not. At any rate, so for this Avodah, the Bizbus or Eitzeres, for this, in order for the Avodah, even in Iskafia, even in the Iskafia, we get the treasures. Because it's all to lead to Ishapcha. I mean, this Netzach is rooted. He went into the whole Arichas of Netzach Yisrael Kilei Adam Hu Li'anochem Lo Yishaker. Kilei Adam Hu Li'anochem. The Netzach, the victory, comes from the level of Lo Yodam, higher than Ishtalshalos. That's what's given to us. Therefore, there's no cheshbonos. Li'anochem, to be considered, is the battle worth it? Is it not? You've got to compromise. Reality is not a perfect world. So let's make peace with it. There's no making peace with it. Lo Adam Li'anochem. Netzach Yisrael Lo Yishaker. That's the bizbus ha'otzos. This, when this is happening, concludes is dafke. Now, at the end of Golos, the Avodas Haburim, the end of Ikvus the Mashiach. And this is the Kol HaYitzim Melchemes Beis David, and he said the two Melchamas Yisbot Barichas. There's the Melchama against Ikvus, Cheirfu, Oivecha Hashem, and then there's Cheirfu, Ikvus Mashiachecha. He is a Yid, Torah mitzvahs. Mashiach doesn't need. He did it himself already. We've arrived. This is the final Melchama that has to be overcome, and we're suggesting it has been already. We're beyond that already. It's post this fantasy that cost so much blood. And for this is given the Bizbuz, the Eitris, and the Melech himself. And then the Avodah required is Mesiras Nefesh, and the assured victory, which is at hand. Okay, that is an overview of this Maamer.